Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Neeta Gautam, and I welcome you on the behalf of the Stanford Center for Asian Health Research and Education to our first annual Evidence-Based Traditional Asian Medicine Conference. This lecture is intended as a brief introduction into the field of Ayurveda, and you will be hearing during the course of this conference numerous speakers in various topics in Ayurveda. The Center for Asian Health Research and Education, the vision is to become the premier academic leader in precision Asian health. Our mission is to improve the health of Asians and Asian Americans everywhere by increasing knowledge, empowering education, and positively impacting clinical care. Our goals include to increase research and knowledge in Asian and Asian American health, to improve the delivery of healthcare for Asians and Asian Americans, and to educate patients, providers, and the community about the health needs of Asians and Asian Americans. This talk on the introduction to Ayurveda is meant to provide a background in the science of Ayurveda and introduce common terms and concepts in Ayurveda. The term Ayurveda itself comes from the Sanskrit words Ayur, which means life, and Veda, which means wisdom, knowledge, or science. It is among the world's oldest continuously practiced prevention and healing systems. It has been in practice for an estimated 5,000 years. The main focus of Ayurveda is prevention of disease and promotion of positive health. Health is defined as a state of balance of body, mind, spirit, and environment. Ayurveda also advocates for the promotion of the body's capacity for self-balancing and repair. This shloka, or knowledge from Ayurveda, is key in terms of understanding the underlying goals of Ayurveda. And it means that one whose doshas, or constitution, is balanced, one whose agni, digestive fire, is balanced, one whose dhatus and malas, body tissues and elimination processes, are balanced, and one whose indriya, senses, mana, mind, and atma, the self, are filled with bliss. Such a one is called a healthy person. And this holistic entirety of all the components of an individual is what contributes to their state of health. The World Health Organization, the WHO, also recognizes these components as part of health. In their definition, health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So it's not the absence of the disease, but the presence of these positive characteristics that are part of health. Going into Ayurveda in a little bit more detail, there are the 5 elements, the Pancha Mahabhutas, which make up all of the universe, and we are included as part of the universe. And those 5 elements are Akasha, or space, Vayu, or air, Agni, or fire, Ap, water, Prithvi, earth. And as you think of those 5 elements and the characteristics of those elements, for example, space, when we think of space, we think of subtle, clear, always expanding. Air is light and mobile. Fire, hot, sharpness. Water, flowing, wet, soft and dull. And earth, static, hard, dense. You will see these characteristics come up over and over again in Ayurveda, and will come in handy as we talk about how we're made up and how we can treat when something is out of balance. Those 5 elements combine to form the 3 doshas. And the doshas are called Vata, which is a combination of space and air, Pitta, which is a combination of fire and water, and Kapha, which is a combination of water and earth. And we're going to go into more detail about those in a moment. All of us are some combination of the 3 doshas to varying extents. This combination is determined at conception, is influenced by the makeup of the parents, as well as environmental factors at the time of conception. Our unique constitution is called Prakriti, and illness arises when a dosha, which by definition can go out of balance, increases and is out of balance. An important concept in Ayurveda is that there is not one ideal dosha or combination of doshas. The goal is not for all of us to be the same in terms of our composition, or that all three doshas are meant to be always present in equal proportion. The purpose of understanding one's dosha is to understand oneself better, to understand more about what it means for the individual to be in balance, and what can potentially disrupt that balance. Talking about each dosha in a bit more detail, we're going to start with Vata. As a reminder, Vata is a combination of space and air. This controls movement. This is the only dosha that moves. And so for this reason, it is sometimes referred to as the king dosha. Examples of movement throughout the body: circulation, respiration, peristalsis, elimination of wastes. And when we think of space and air, we think of Vata. The characteristics are movement, lightness, dryness, cold, rough, quick, variable. In someone who has a predominance in Vata, some characteristics you may notice is that they are very sharp mentally, very quick to pick up concepts, but can also be quick to forget. They're very enthusiastic, they're very creative, they're quick to get things done, and they're very high energy. They tend to have a lighter frame in terms of their body structure and more prominent joints if you were to look at their hands, for example. Pitta, our next dosha, is predominantly fire with some water in it to help keep the fire in balance. The fire is the principle of digestion, transformation, and metabolism. So we think of our digestive processes in our gastrointestinal tract, the metabolism of food, the breakdown of food, and in the tissues themselves, how that food is converted into useful energy. So when we think of fire, we think of heat, sharpness, flowing and liquid from that bit of water that's also present in Pitta. For someone who's Pitta predominant, characteristics you may notice include strong concentration, very sharp intellect. They're sometimes considered natural leaders. Lustrous complexion, you may notice a red undertone to their skin or hair. Good energy level, very direct in their communication. They tend to be more medium built, neither very light or very dense. And finally, Kapha, water and earth. This is the principle of fluidity from the water and structure from the earth. So this is the tissue formation, the actual frame and structure of the body, mucus production, lubrication of the joints. And so when we think of Kapha, we think of stability, heaviness, cool, slow, stickiness. The characteristics of someone who's predominantly Kapha, they tend to have the strongest body frame, strongest muscles, joints, bones, strong immunity. In general, those of Kapha predominance are very calm, very generous, very kind, very nurturing. They are a little slower to pick up concepts, but they are the best at retaining information once they've learned it. They're very slow to get angry. In terms of their physical structure, the solid frame is a characteristic of Kapha predominance, along with large eyes, very thick, lustrous hair. As we are part of the universe, the doshas, as they apply to us, also apply to the world around us. So in terms of times of day, there are certain times of day where certain doshas are more predominant. For example, early morning and early afternoon are Vata predominant. Mid-morning to late morning, mid-evening to late evening is Kapha predominant. And the middle part of the day, when the sun is highest in the sky, that fire, the Pitta is most predominant. The doshas also apply to seasons of the year. These examples are more for North America. There are some variations throughout the world, but in general, the summertime when the heat is highest, of course, Pitta, or that fire element, is most predominant. Fall and early winter, when it becomes cooler and drier, Vata tends to be more predominant. And then late winter into spring, think of in areas where it snows, the snow is starting to melt, there's more flowing, and cool dampness, Kapha is most predominant. Doshas also apply to our stages of life. So as a young child, Kapha is predominant. That's the stage of life when we are growing and building our structure, we're getting taller and bigger and stronger. That's where Kapha is predominant. As we reach adulthood, Pitta becomes more predominant. This is the stage when we are building our careers. If we're having families, we're providing for our families and our communities. And that fire, that motivation to do those things is where the Pitta comes in. And as we get older and we turn over those responsibilities to others, the Vata element becomes more predominant. Agni, which is another important concept in Ayurveda, is the term for fire. And that can apply to the fire of the sun, the fire of the digestion, the fire within the tissues that provide all transformation. It's responsible for food breakdown, and as that's food broken down and transported throughout the body, how the body uses it. Just as the doshas constitute our body, the doshas can also impact the quality of the Agni, or the fire. If there's a Vata imbalance, you can imagine a wind or a breeze blowing against a fire. You would see an irregularity in that fire, and variable appetite, bloating, gas, constipation may become more of a problem. In a Pitta imbalance, an increase in the fire, insatiable hunger and appetite, diarrhea, as the fire is burning through everything at a rapid rate. In a Kapha imbalance, you can imagine if there was dirt thrown onto a fire, the fire becomes dull, the feeling of the food not moving or not processing appropriately. Our goal with our Agni is to have a balanced fire, which is called Sama Agni, and that's good digestion and appetite. The body itself are made of the 7 tissues known as dhatus, and by definition, the dhatus are that which holds together. The 7 tissues are the rasa, the plasma and the lymph, the rakta, the red cells themselves, mamsa, muscle, medha, fat, asthi, bone, maja, bone marrow, and shukla or artva, reproductive fluid. Each one in turn derives nutrition from the digestive system and then passes on the nutrients to the next tissue. So not only is this order important, but if there's a disruption somewhere along the way, that can affect not only that tissue, but the quality of the tissues further downstream. The end products of digestion are the malas, and the mala is that which spoils or decays. And these are outputs. And not only are they outputs, but they can provide an insight into the quality of the digestion and what's happening in the system. The 3 malas are mutra, or urine, purusha, feces, and sweda, sweat. Ama is food that is undigested or improperly digested. This is another waste, food that's not been used appropriately by the body. And the challenge with ama is that it doesn't stay in the gut. It can spread from the gut throughout the body and cause a number of conditions such as heart disease, gallstones, or autoimmune disorders. The end goal of digestion, once it's gone through all the tissues and all the waste products have been removed, is ojas, which is the natural glow or vitality of the body. This is the essence of all the tissues. It's thought to be the immunity, the life force within an individual, and helps maintain the balance of the body. When we think about foods and treatments and the qualities of the body, they can be described in tattvas, which are qualities or attributes. There are 10 pairs of polarities, and we can use these to describe conditions. We can use these to describe treatments. And a key concept here is that like increases like, and opposite qualities balance. So for example, if someone's been eating a lot of foods that are cold, eating more cold food might be problematic. They would want to balance that out with foods that are warm or hot. And so these pairs are heavy and light, cold and hot, oily and dry, dull and sharp, smooth and rough, dense and liquidy, soft and hard, static and mobile, gross and subtle, cloudy and clear. I hope you found this brief introduction useful, and that as you go through the conference, you will, when you encounter these terms, you will have some familiarity with them moving forward. I've included here some references for those of you who might be interested in more resources, including several books, podcast, and the website of the National Ayurvedic Medical Association. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the conference.